Just wait for everyone to turn up and see the participants are building nicely. Right, let's begin. Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, 28th of November, 2024. Welcome once again to another edition of the Smart Collaboration Technology Club with myself, Sean Langley, Jean Poupard, Mauro Bussano, and a new member of our team. I'm really delighted to welcome Jan Metner, who will be covering the DACH region moving forward. So welcome, Jan. And some of you may have met and spoken to Jan before. We're quite delighted to have him on the team, and right on cue. It sounds like he's just joining into the webinar now. Good morning, Jan. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, I can.
Welcome, welcome. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Good stuff. So with today's Technology Club, usual process as normal, I'll be starting off the presentation, going through some various topics, and then handing over to Mauro towards the end, who's going to cover off a couple of other different topics, because I'm sure you may be bored of my voice by then. And of course, in the interest of balance and keep things different, we like to share the tasks around the team. So as always, please ask questions. Pleased to hear any questions, feedback, and stuff like that. Of course, after the webinar, videos of the webinar and slides will be available on demand for those of you that have registered. And of course, if you have any colleagues or people you know that would like to join future Technology Club webinars, please do let us know and we will add them to the distribution list. So without further ado, let's get cracking. Of course, I mentioned that. So let's go to the table of contents today. We're going to start off, it's a Core Gen 2 special, I guess, in a way, because we have our latest generation of a very popular ThinkSmart Core very soon to be released at the back of the end of December. So we're going to deep dive into that and tell you what we know about that so far and its capabilities, particularly the architecture, bring your own meeting features, which is a very welcome addition to the new product, and talk a bit about the MPU and stuff like that. Latest updates from ThinkSmart Manager. So we're going to talk about the NTR plugin controls that we have available and how to deploy them. Then I'm going to hand over to Mauro. He's going to talk about ultrasound proximity join on Teams Rooms devices. And then a new feature that's been teased for quite a while, but digital signage is now available on a couple of platforms and other methods, URLs on MTRs. And then last topic will be the Windows 10 end of service and out of warranty information about our devices, and just a bit of background on that for some of the older devices there. So let's get cracking into the portfolio. Like we always start, quick roundup of where we are today and what's available. So we talked on previous webinars about the ThinkSmart Dock, the USB-C Smart Dock ThinkSmart Edition. It's got a very long name, but ThinkSmart Dock is a good way to name it, I think. And then, of course, we've got our room systems, ThinkSmart Core Gen 2. Be going into detail on that very shortly. ThinkSmart 1, the Windows all-in-one base bar for small and medium-sized meeting rooms. Of course, available with IP controller or the USB controller. We have our ThinkSmart Hub Gen 2, still going strong. It's middle of the table, almost all-in-one device. Simply add a display and a camera to that. Again, great for small and medium-sized meeting rooms. And another recently deployed, announced, released even, product is the ThinkSmart Tiny Kit. It's an entry-level Teams Rooms compute with a USB controller, capable of driving single displays, single cameras and stuff like that, but really great entry-level solution for Teams Rooms. Of course, we have the ThinkSmart Cam, still going strong. AI-based camera for small and medium-sized meeting rooms, which can be used in addition with the ThinkSmart 1 and other devices. If you want multiple cameras and stuff like that, it's a great one to have on the side there with digital zoom and speaker tracking capabilities, as I mentioned. Then we have the ThinkSmart Bar 180. Can be bought standalone or bundled with ThinkSmart Core, or potentially you could bundle it with ThinkSmart Tiny Kit, spin up a great little meeting room there. Good microphone pickup range, 3 cameras in there, stacks of AI features, as you'd expect for a product like that. Google Series 1 room kits. We've just moved into the Gen 3 of the Google Meet kits. So same design, just a slight tweak on the ports there. We've got some additional USB-C ports around the back, and of course a processor refresh on that as we've moved into Gen 3. That is available now in kits small to medium plus, and to large. So anywhere from a 4-person meeting room up to about a 20-person meeting room with the Google Meet Series 1 kits. And then, of course, ThinkVision ILFDs are large format interactive displays, available in 3 different sizes, 65-inch, 75-inch, and 86-inch, respectively. A great companion to any of the meeting room devices in there if you need a full Lenovo solution for the meeting rooms. So, moving on, Lenovo ThinkSmart Core Generation 2. A brand new flagship product from us. It's been a clean sheet product, so purpose-built from the ground up, like with many of our room systems. Many factors for purpose-building devices such as this we have to consider. Of course, its application. It's going to be in meeting rooms, it's going to be installed perhaps under tables, behind displays, going into AV racks, sometimes comms rooms. It's got to be a flexible device that can be installed in lots of different places, but at the same time maintaining a small footprint, but packed full of power. As you can see, basis of the specs there, it's going to be a Teams and a Zoom room compliant, but based following some Google specs as well. The CPU selection on there, this is important for the meeting room. This is a 14th gen Intel Meteor Lake using the Ultra 5, Ultra 7 processors. Maximum reliability, of course, low power consumption, really important these days. And, GPU power is absolutely essential for driving, the meeting and collaboration experiences we have with it inside the meeting room. Of course, again, integrated vPro for enterprise, business grade performance, security, reliability, and of course that all important remote management, whether using ThinkSmart Manager or other methods to gain KVM access onto the device. Special thermal design, to ensure the device doesn't run too hot when it's in the meeting room. That's absolutely essential with any room compute that's going to be working in there. And of course, the noise is very important as well. You can't have a device that's too loud. So, it runs, there's fans inside of things, but inside the typical meeting space and that, the acoustic floor, it runs quieter than that, so it's barely even audible inside the room, which is how it should be for any meeting devices. And like following on from Gen 1 and ThinkSmart Hub and ThinkSmart One and stuff like that, we have that integrated HDMI ingest port as well on there. So very important when used in complex room solutions where you might have video distribution that you need to ingest into the ThinkSmart Core computer as well. So lots of options for how it can be integrated and content can be ingested by that device. So I mentioned the 2 flavors of processor, if you like, here. So the available base model will be an Intel Core Ultra 5 with 16 gig of memory. But there'll also be a different SKU part number for an Intel Ultra 7 with 32 gig of memory. So that provides extra options. If you want the powerhouse, of course, you go for the Ultra 7, but the Ultra 5 is, run-of-the-mill, still incredibly powerful there. But again, it's nice to have different options. And of course, being able to take control of whatever features get thrown at it over the next 12, 24 months moving forward. So a nice future-proofing there. Options that will be available, there's optional cable management and VESA mounting cages. The majorities are going to be sent out to distribution will include these, but these are future options which can be configured to order at a later date for specific orders. So we're going into that a bit more detail because there's lots of ordering options available with ThinkSmart Core Gen 2. Particularly most applications, you would want the cable management in place because, for obvious reasons, that's securing everything down, making it look nice and neat, typically when it's installed in the meeting room. But there may be instances when it's installed in AV racks and stuff like that, and the cable management isn't necessary because obviously you've got lacing bars and stuff like that inside the rack, so you may want to do without it. And the actual form factor of the compute is without the cable management is much smaller than ThinkSmart Core Gen 1, so you could fit a couple of these on a 1U rack tray, no problem at all. So nice and flexible there. Bring your own meeting. So that will be an option as well that can be selected or deselected. I believe a lot of models initially that are going to ship will have that included, but this is something that can be enabled and disabled in BIOS, which we'll touch on a bit later. But certainly for different configuration options and orders, it may not be required to have bring your own meeting on there because it is a dedicated port. So that can be removed with a custom order. So let's go into detail about bring your own meeting and how that process and flow is going to work on the device when it's actually in practice in a meeting room. Of course, bring your own meeting. You know, it's something we've been asked about lots and lots over the last 3 years since Core Gen 1 came out, and we like to listen. You know, the feedback is important. There's a slight change as well on the cable management, which I didn't talk about, but you know, Core Gen 1 had like a flap that on a hinge. This new one now slides off to make it a lot easier to access if the computer is installed behind a display. So, you know, from feedback that we've had, the previous hinge type flap can be a bit awkward, so now it's a lot easier. Same with bring your own meeting. You know, having that capability we feel is essential because it gives greater flexibility for users if when they need to make calls on different platforms when in the meeting room. You know, it allows a lot more freedom of setups, and of course you can reuse what is in the room itself. So that could be a 4-person meeting room, very simple, bar 180 in there, all the way up to a very complex divisible meeting room. Having that port is going to allow users to take control of those peripherals that are connected into the ThinkSmart Core Gen 2. And typically, you know, it's ideal, as I mentioned, for customers that mainly, you know, conduct their calls on this with a single UC provider, but they may have external clients, guests, anyone like that coming in, you know, needing to do calls on different platforms. That's where you can use the bring your own meeting port. Other names that it's referred to, whether it might be a standardization one day for BYOM, BYOD, USB pass-through, I don't know. It's called lots of things, but certainly the kind of, I think the trend here has been BYOM. So I'm going to try and train myself to say that more often. And of course, you know, I mentioned the obvious of that. When you take in that mode, you can take control of any of those peripherals and output to the display in the meeting room. And charging as well. That's another addition that we can charge users' laptops. Most laptops, some might be a bit too powerful to charge over USB-C, but I believe it does about 45 watts of charging down that cable. More on that in a second. So the BYOM hardware, it's a dedicated port on the left-hand side of the compute when you're looking at the IOs around the back. It has dedicated chipset and drivers to enable this to work. So this port is specific, only use it for bring your own meeting connectivity and content sharing. So it will come included with a 3-meter cable for that BYOM port. Specs are on screen, as you can see there now. DP Alt Mode 1.4 support is connect to C to C, sync and source. So, you know, sync being the compute, source being the laptop that's connected in. We will have an optional 5-meter cable that's available. That's you see as an accessory or selectable in a custom to order, that's CTO bill of materials. So if you do need to customize the ThinkSmart core, as I mentioned, different processor flavors, BYOM port or not, cable management, stuff like that, that would be done in a CTO. So speak to your local rep about how to do that, and they will be able to assist. Slightly different spec on the 5-meter cable. If you are using that, that is just peripheral connectivity. You will need an HDMI cable connected to the compute as well for the display output. Because of that cable length, that cannot do it all down that 5-meter cable. But both cables will pass power delivery to the laptop up to 45 watts as well. Be interested to know, and certainly, you know, myself, Jan, Jean, and Mauro, we will be looking to test longer cables. We've got the spec to see what kind of longer third-party cables would be compatible with the core as well, and it would be great to hear from any of you out there that have tested some longer cables. Say, yeah, it's worked with this such and such. Please let us know because there's lots of cables out there, and they can be quite expensive the longer you go. But it's always good to have knowledge of other third-party cables we can recommend as other solutions for longer runs. So the BYOM operational modes. There are 4 operational modes that are selectable in BIOS or done by ThinkSmart Manager. So we're going to go through these 4 modes in detail now to give you an understanding of that. And then there's some screenshots from the BIOS page and, of course, ThinkSmart Manager and the kind of experience that you can expect when changing into these modes. So by default, any ThinkSmart Core Gen 2 with a BYOM port will have the mode port disabled by default for security reasons. So that's mode 1, as you can see at the top of the screen there. Mode 2 is USB peripheral device mode only. So you have the red BYOM cable that's indicated there. That allows you to take control of the camera, microphones, and speakers. And then that HDMI cable coming from the laptop going into the HDMI ingest port of the core will obviously transmit video from the laptop through the ingest port and out of the computer to the display in the room. This can also be used in the case of the 5-meter cable, because as I mentioned, that 5-meter cable will only do data, if you like, USB peripheral transfer and not video down there. So if you are doing longer runs and stuff like that, you're going to need it in mode 2 and 2 cables that run to the desk there. So changing to mode 3, that is just simply display only mode. So the BYOM cable can be used to display content only, and of course the HDMI ingest cable can be used to display content only. It's equivalent of content sharing through USB-C. So you've got options there. If you just want to, you don't just do a straight content share, no BYOM and stuff, you can use that USB-C cable for that. And then mode 4, which is the full bring your own meeting mode, that combines modes 2 and 3, and that of course gives the greatest level of options. And typically in any scenario where there is a need to bring your own meeting in there, you want to put it in mode 4 for that full experience, because that will do everything down the one cable. But of course, then you can use HDMI cable as well. So you've got greater options. So you could feed different sources into the HDMI port and then use the USB-C port for bring your own meeting. So what does that look like? This is a screenshot from the BIOS settings. Super easy, but it does give a brief indication of what that's all about. As you can see, mode 1, disable, mode 2, peripheral only, mode 3, display only USB-C, and then mode 4, full BYOM enable, mode 2 plus mode 3. Very easy to do in BIOS, obviously F1 on boot, enter the mode, and then F10 save and exit and restart. Simple and easy to do on there. But even easier would be to do it via ThinkSmart Manager. And here you can use leverage the kind of peripheral configurations and system configurations for devices with different BYOM settings and push them out to devices very easily. They can either apply it to one device configurations or to the device and edit the bring your own device settings directly in the device tray. So it's super easy to do. But changing that operational mode in ThinkSmart Manager will fail if you've got BIOS supervisor's password set. So that's only the case if you've got that password supervisor password set, you're going to need to change it in BIOS itself. We cannot override that password from ThinkSmart Manager at the moment. But typically, come across most setups, they don't have the BIOS supervisor password set. So you've got the best of both worlds. You can change it from ThinkSmart Manager, which is by far the easiest way. Notes on there, as you can see on here, you've got an auto select countdown timer, which can be changed. I believe the default is 30 seconds. More on that in a couple of slides time, where it shows you what the behavior is when you connect in a cable. And then the different device configurations I mentioned. So they can be created and then assigned to ThinkSmart Core devices. So you can see we've got, it's the same when you can create these configurations for like power saving mode and stuff like that for a ThinkSmart Core. So you can do it once and say, right, I've got my fleet of ThinkSmart Core Gen 2. I all want them to be in full BYOM mode. I can change the port how I want accordingly, create this configuration. And then it's very simple just to go to each core in ThinkSmart Manager and say, right, I want configuration this one, and so on and so forth. But alternatively, you can change different rooms to be different behaviors. So it's nice and flexible. The port options, of course, reflect what can be changed in BIOS. So I won't go through them again, but it's just reflecting those 4 different modes, if you like. If HDMI ingest is selected, that auto select countdown timer option and the BYOM mode toggle will appear on screen. And it should be off by default and can only be turned on if it's enabled at the org level or if the device is not currently in a bring your own meeting meeting there. So the tooltip will notify users that these settings will only apply to devices with bring your own meeting support, which is Core Gen 2 currently at the moment. So how to do it on the org-wide level. This is across the board to all devices. For those of you using ThinkSmart Manager or not familiar with ThinkSmart Manager, this means we can set it up and it will apply to every single device on there. Similar with, as you can see, other features in there, the enabling and disabling of unused USB ports and stuff like that. And these are global org kind of security features, if you like, for owners of ThinkSmart Manager that can change and configure accordingly. And then, of course, it can be changed under the permissions tab settings as well. The organization owner, as I mentioned, they can disable that port completely if you don't want that accessible on devices. So the default BYOM setting, as I mentioned, devices will ship with a bring your own device, bring your own meeting mode disabled by default to avoid any security risks. So that's important to be aware. That's it. Check in BIOS first, enable it, it will work. It's advised that a customer will enable it manually in BIOS screen or ThinkSmart Manager or via helper WinMix scripts that can be provided by Lenovo. But certainly manually with BIOS first time, very easy, or if it's enrolled in ThinkSmart Manager, even easier way to do it. And of course, businesses need TSM portal customers. They need to have that easy configuration to auto enable this feature and bring your own meeting mode upon claiming. So that can avoid any additional manual effort to change it on there. So lots of options and nice and easy to do. So how are we doing it? Virtual drivers, surprise, surprise. That's quite a common way of doing it, but it's important that we've got to minimize the kind of red flags and suppress the messages that will get thrown up by a compute if peripherals are missing. Because, of course, in ThinkSmart Manager, we can create alerts based on many different features, and of course, one of them being USB disconnects and stuff like that. So we've got to minimize those messages. We don't want to send up false flags saying cameras are missing when it's in BYO mode. And of course, the same applies, and more importantly, to Teams Admin Center and the Teams Pro portal. So virtual USB drivers will be used when it's in bring your own meeting modes for modes 2 and 4, and this will minimize error messages for the management tools. So yeah, it's quite a challenging thing to get done, but this is the way it's going to be done, because obviously we don't want these false messages clogging up people's inboxes and stuff like that. So the user journey. What does it look like? How does it work when you do it? And of course, it's super simple. If you're in let's say mode 4, for example, and you're connecting that USB-C cable, that's the full bring your own meeting mode. You connect to that BYOM port, that USB-C cable, to your laptop, and then a prompt comes up to accept, reject, or wait for that countdown. And that countdown was what we saw in ThinkSmart Manager. That drop-down timer can be anywhere from 30 seconds or less. But typically, you're going to plug in. Do you want to go into bring your own meeting device mode? Yes, I do. Click yes, and then it will switch over. It just activates nice and quickly. All the peripherals will be routed to the PC, and then, of course, you can carry on your PC laptop and then run any meeting you like on there. If you select cancel, it will be used only for content sharing. You can see that on the bottom. So important to note out. Now, if devices are claimed to ThinkSmart Manager, you're going to get a bit more data up on the screen, on the user interface of the panel, on the room, because of obviously that data is inside ThinkSmart Manager, so it can pass it back and show that. So the interface for claimed devices displays the room name, current date and time from the Core Gen 2, and location if that's been configured. And then you can exit the mode at any one time by pressing the exit button at the bottom, or just simply unplugging the cable. So nice and easy user experience. The device hasn't been unclaimed. That's the only difference, just a little bit less data on screen, so you don't get that full meeting information stuff, but it will still give you details about the device on there. But so that's just the difference between a claim to ThinkSmart Manager and an unclaimed ThinkSmart Manager device on screen, splash screen when in BYOM mode. So some FAQs, and I'm sure there'll be other FAQs coming up. Love to hear questions and stuff like that about this, and certainly when you get a chance to test them out, please do give us your feedback. Always keen to hear good and bad feedback, of course. So can I use 2 displays in bring your own meeting mode? So it behaves the same way as HDMI ingest. Only 1 display or duplicated content across dual or 2 displays, depending on settings. So typically in an MTR now, you've got a dual display and you're not in a meeting, you connect laptop with an HDMI ingest cable, the content will be duplicated on both screens. Doesn't do extended desktop. That will be the same in that BYOM mode. What is the expected behavior when the BYOM cable is plugged in during an ongoing meeting? So in a call then, no response. So it's not going to interfere with that meeting at that time. Is the laptop charging delivered in all 4 BYOM modes? Yes, apart from, well, one, of course, because that disables the port completely, so it's not doing absolutely anything. But modes 2, 3, and 4, you're going to get charging down that cable up to 45 watts all the time. What is the expected behavior when in BYOM mode the display of the connected laptop goes to sleep? So timeout after various amount of times. The system will remain in BYOM mode because it can still detect the laptop connected to it at that point. But what's the expected behavior? The connected laptop goes into hibernation. Well, then it will remain in a BYOM mode, but if the USB port connections are put to sleep on the laptop, of course, then it will revert back because it's not detecting any connection to the BYOM port on there. So all typical kind of behaviors there, but it's important to point these out at this stage. Okay, so for the sharp-eyed amongst you may have seen on the BIOS screenshot that was showing the different BYOM ports. Above that, we have some settings for changing the EDID on the HDMI outputs of our device. So just a quick note about this, and this is something I'm certainly happy to see implemented in this Core Gen 2, and it would have been great to have something like this a few years ago when EDID issues were a bit more of a thorn in all of our sides with 4K displays and MTRs. Certainly got better now, but I have seen the occasional issue where I needed to stick an EDID minder in and lock the res down to 1920 by 1080. But with Core Gen 2, there is no need to use EDID minders anymore. So that's great. That means, less hardware to procure and install in the system, less breaks in the cable, and you can just do all this via software. So in the device, in the BIOS settings, just above the BYOM mode, we have the EDID emulator settings. And we've got 4 different settings, I think 3 different settings on there. 1, 2, 3, well, it's 4 again because you've got to disable. They allow you to lock the EDID on a single or both ports to 1920 by 1080 at 60 Hertz on there. This would be great. I'd love to see some more EDIDs added into this, perhaps, like 21 by 9 aspect ratio EDIDs, 4K EDIDs and stuff. But certainly at start here, if you do encounter any display issues that you suspect may be related to EDID, first port of call, jump into the BIOS, restrict it down to 1920 by 1080, and then reassess the behavior again and see if that's got rid of it. And certainly, many of us out there, we've used expensive, cheap EDID emulators. They do the job. They do exactly what they say on the tin. But again, this is just saving you money and saving additional stuff that needs to be installed sometimes inside the meeting room and on the compute there. So yeah, check it out and have a play around with it. I've been playing around with it on my 4K monitors. It does exactly what you'd expect it on there. So nice addition to have in the BIOS, and certainly something we've had lots of feedback about over the past few years. And the dev team are keen to implement features like this just to make life better and better experience for everyone. Okay, cool. So another new and I think first feature for dedicated room system computers is having an onboard NPU on the motherboard and chipset. So this 14th gen Intel Ultra series, it's the Meteor Lake version. They come with an onboard NPU, so a neural processing unit for those that don't know. And of course, these are typically mentioned for AI workloads and processing tasks like that, but they're certainly not limited to just doing that. We'll talk more about that in the following slides. So it's the 14th gen. It's the first of their chipsets to have this NPU on board. Of course, there's additional performance to the CPU, as you expect with any generational upgrade, refresh from there. The GPU's been beefed up as well. Great, of course, GPUs are for doing AI workloads, but of course they're a lot more power hungry than what an NPU is. Some of the main purpose of NPU, it's a very efficient processor for doing workloads such as AI, or it can run other applications that are built to run on NPUs. So for sustainability purposes, why not use the low power processing unit on the compute? And then obviously CPU and GPU can be used more when they're in sort of like high demand meetings with a lot of video going on and stuff like that. So there's many benefits of having this NPU on board, and certainly as more features come out over time, for Teams rooms and stuff like that. You know, a lot of things, the majority of stuff today is being done on the cloud, but, you know, we see the trend moving. AI-related tasks will get pushed to the edge and be done locally on board by the NPU, by the GPU, etc. You know, the reasons for running AI locally, as you can see there, functionality. It's like intelligent features across multiple peripherals, regardless of their intelligence. Bit of a mouthful, but you know, it's increases the functionality. It's more efficient. Reactiveness. You know, you can take out latency and lag and stuff that be associated with sending various streams, whatever data up to the cloud and back. Do it all locally. Of course, that's going to be snappier, punchier, better experience. And of course, there's a security element to it. You know, the AI models handle the data locally, and that maintains more privacy. That data doesn't leave the network, stays in your domain. That's a great thing. So we're looking to see those trends push, and certainly with Core Gen 2, you know, it's future-proofing any investments in the meeting space and be able to accommodate the swathes of wonderful features we expect to see over the next couple of years moving forward. So what is an NPU for those that are not too familiar with an NPU, and why an NPU? So it's a computer component and it's designed to accelerate AI and machine learning tasks in a power efficient manner. So it computes differently from a CPU and GPU. As I mentioned, GPUs are very good at AI tasks, you know, but they're awfully power hungry. Now I've got an RTX, I think it's a 3080 graphics card. I think, you know, the RTX gaming graphics cards and stuff like that, they're great for processing stuff, but the size of the things and the noise they create and stuff, and you know, that's just not practical for the meeting room, something like that. You know, they're built for gaming for a reason, because they stick them in big PCs and they've generally got headphones on and stuff like that, so you're not going to hear the graphics card wearing away. We can't put that in a room computer, of course not. It's way too big. Certainly things like NPUs, you know, they can do so much more processing in such a smaller form factor and only going to get better and faster. It's a great addition to have into a meeting room compute. Of course, the increased performance, you know, with CPU and GPU, they can take those tasks, the tasks that they'd normally be running, and move them to the NPU. So that's obviously going to be a power reduction. It's just more efficient and overall a better way for the computer to do its tasks that are assigned to it. So what will it do? AIs with NPU hardware. They can do Windows Studio effects. That's AI-powered webcam effects. Of course, Copilot plus PCs that are running on Qualcomm Snapdragon X processors, and you've got Windows Recall, but these require 40 plus tops at the moment. So it's quite limited to what I can do at the moment, but there are certainly things coming out. MTR features at the moment currently require 4 tops, so we're told. But then there's also option, you know, things like apps like ThinkSmart Manager, Lenovo audiovisual apps, and other third-party apps that are designed to run on NPUs. We can deliver the Meteor Lake. It's got 10 tops on it. That might sound like a great deal at the moment on there, but that's enough to do these other tasks. It's taking tasks away from the CPU and GPU, so that's only a good thing. Remember, it's more efficient the way it works. So endless possibilities. Be exciting to see what the future holds there. And of course, the general intention by the UC providers is to offload more of their tasks from AI to save power and water, and just generally be a better sustainable message that they can send across in the way the appliances work. So let's have a look at the MTR features based on the hardware compatibility, and this is moving forward into next year and further on into the future. So we have the entry-level MTR, the ThinkSmart Tiny Kit. It's an i3. That is limitations. It will support only a single display, a single room cam, doesn't support content cameras, and intelligent features are not supported on there due to its sort of inferior computational power. But then you have your standard MTR experience. So we're looking at ThinkSmart Core Gen 1, obviously today running in thousands and thousands of meeting rooms all over the place. That has the regular features and performance that all of them have got. But then moving forward, MTRs with AI acceleration, you know, that is the ThinkSmart Core Gen 2, the Ultra 5 16 gig model NPU on board, as I've been talking about. And then you want to go to the top tier, and that's going to be the Ultra 7 32 gig of memory compute as well. So we're covered across all boards on there, and certainly if you're looking for a all bells and whistles, future-proofed PC for the next 5 years or so, the ThinkSmart Core Gen 2 Ultra 7 32 gig is certainly the go-to device for that. So future-proofing, as I mentioned, device OS longevity. As we know, it's no secret, Windows gets a lot longer run out than Android OS does. But the pros and cons of both. We're not going to go into that. We went into that, I'm thinking, Technology Club in May with a Windows versus Android special. I think it was in May. But anyway, there's been many benefits of Windows computes. And of course, that being able to put them in complex meeting rooms, interfacing with, other devices, AV networks and stuff like that, being able to accept things. So the many benefits of Windows-based MTRs and, of course, Zoom rooms. Now let's look at the competition and how the Core Gen 2 stacks up. A lot of data on screen. I'm not going to go through it line by line, but some of the key highlights on this, as you can see, let's drop right down to the bottom what we've got in here. The execution units, way ahead of the rest, and the execution units compared to some of the competition and what they're doing there. Of course, key thing, 14th gen Meteor Lake, the only room system compute that's on 14th gen currently as it stands at the moment. Great benefits of that. Look at the power, the base power on that, 28 watts on both of the computes, rising up to almost 35 and some of them there. MPU tops, 9.5 tops on that, no tops on the others. So anything that comes out that is specifically programmed to run on MPUs, it can do it on there, which is great. And of course, moving down at the bottom, vPro Enterprise. Others do have that, but be mindful, vPro Essentials, you're not going to get that same experience. Enterprise vPro is definitely the way to go for there. So moving on to the transition from ThinkSmart Core Gen 1 to ThinkSmart Core Gen 2. Of course, it's generational refresh, so there will be an end of life, meaning it cannot be ordered anymore. Of course, it will still be under support and warranty, like any of our other devices that have gone end of life. There is a certain life cycle, more on that at the end of the webinar, about when devices are properly end of life kind of thing. But of course, you've got many, many years after purchase that they will keep going. So cannot be ordered anymore. March 31st, 2025. We're going to stop producing them at the end of April 2025, and then end of support will not be until April 30th, 2030. So you've got 5+ years on any core computes that are going now. They're going to be supported, but at that point, and April 30th, 2030, there'll be no more development, bug fixes, security, and stuff like that. And who knows where we'll be at, and sort of 5 and a bit years time then, and what room computes will look like. Be interesting to see. So the early order window, it's now open, or it was open on November the 11th. So you can get the orders in for ThinkSmart Core Gen 2 right away. Ship support, that's when the first units will roll out of the factory and out on the way to distribution around the world, will be at December the 30th this year. So, and then what that typically means, we look at about 2 to 3 weeks for them to be distributed slowly, hit distribution. So you should be able to get them in your hands sort of sometime by the back end of January, around that time. Of course, with ThinkSmart Core Gen 1, we've done Zoom variants, and the Zoom version of ThinkSmart Core Gen 2 will ship support on March the 31st, 2025. So expect to see those units available in April, obviously a few weeks later after it goes ship support. So really exciting there. Be keen to see how, virtual director and triple monitors and stuff like that works on the Core Gen 2 for Zoom rooms. That'll be quite exciting to try that out. Part numbers there are for the channel. Obviously, majority of people on this webinar channel. So you can see we've got the different part numbers there. The XX at the end is obviously the regional prefix, UK, for example, DE for Germany, so on and so forth. But you see there's lots of options there. Core Gen 2 with USB controller or IP controller, and then the Core Gen 2 full room kit. That's the bar 180 with your choice of IP or USB controller with the Core Gen 2 there, different part numbers. All of these models will ship with the Ultra 5 processor, 16 gig DDR5 RAM, but there will be CTO create to order possible on the Ultra 7 versions as well. You can bring your own meeting. That's removable, create to order. You can remove the mount, and you can remove the cable retention. So as I mentioned, these are all CTO stuff. So reach out to your Lenovo rep and ask about that and how to get those orders configured to your tastes. So quick thing on ThinkSmart Manager. Of course, updates come thick and fast with ThinkSmart Manager, typically one a month. So we do these webinars every quarter. And let's just go through the latest release and how that came in. So the 2410 release was October. ThinkSmart service, manager service has been updated. That happens automatically. There's a ThinkSmart Bar 180 firmware updater utility that's available, and all these links, of course, will be available after the webinar. The MTR room controls plugin has been updated as well. That can be pushed out now by ThinkSmart Manager. And then the ThinkSmart Cam Control application. So that's for changing camera settings on the Bar 180, ThinkSmart All-in-One Cam on the ThinkSmart One, and the ThinkSmart Cam. That is for users that are not using ThinkSmart Manager, and you've got that standalone app that can run on the device. There's a default language setting for organization that can now be changed. Emails sent to users will follow the user's settings. So if you don't want the default of English language for any communications from ThinkSmart Manager, you can change that in the portal to a different language of your choice. I'm not sure how many languages are available at the moment, but I'm sure there's a few, and we will add others as we move forward. So let's quickly talk about the MTR plugin control. This is to enable local pan tilt zoom and auto zoom controls of the ThinkSmart Cam and the ThinkSmart All-in-One Cam on the ThinkSmart One. Bar 180 is in the works and be coming soon at some point, but this is just allows you to change between auto zooming and pan tilt zooming modes via the MTR using the Room Controls plugin. This can be pushed out by ThinkSmart Manager now, so you don't have to install it separately. As you can see on the window here at the bottom, you can decide when it gets pushed out, or you can just manually push it out by hitting install straight away, and it will send it to the device. So any updates to this plugin will come and be available from here moving forwards. So at this point, I'm going to be quiet and have a sip of my coffee and hand over to Maro, who's going to talk about MTR ultrasound and other topics on the webinar moving forward. So over to you, Maro.
Thanks a lot, Sean. I hope that my network will stay up for this brief presentation. So let's talk about the ultrasound proximity join for Microsoft Teams rooms. So it's a feature that has been introduced by Microsoft in the latest Microsoft Teams room application release, so 5.2.115. It's an additional method on top of the Bluetooth beaconing to provide proximity join. Proximity join is actually the easiest way to join a meeting to which you have been invited using the equipment that are available in a meeting room. So what happens is that when you launch the meeting on your mobile or on your PC, you can see what are the rooms in the nearby that are available, so that basically you can join using the technology that is audio visual peripherals, displays, and so on of that meeting room. The problem with the Bluetooth beaconing has been that Bluetooth can pass through the walls. And so when you search for an available room, you can see several rooms, and not necessarily only the one that are very close to you. So in that case, Microsoft has decided to add the ultrasound proximity to make the search of available meeting rooms much more precise. So the Bluetooth beaconing and the ultrasound signal can work together. So at the moment, in the Skype setting XML, the usual file that is used to set everything on the Microsoft Teams room on Windows, with the promise by Microsoft that all those details will migrate sooner or later to the Pro Management portal. In that case, you have XML parameters to enable and disable independently the Bluetooth beaconing and the ultrasound. The ultrasound is actually supported only by few devices. There are specific requirements by Microsoft, and the approach is to use a speaker that is not the standard speaker of the meeting room, is an additional speaker that should be let's say, available or present inside the controller, so inside the touch console on the table. And so at the moment, the capability is supported by just a few devices. But Microsoft, when Microsoft introduced that feature, declared a caution that is reported here in the slide. So ultrasound, however, cannot be heard if you are as old as me, but if there are young people and animals, of course, as well, they can hear that strange and I would say annoying noise. So Microsoft is encouraging, in any case, to test, to make sure that there is no side effect for people in the building. And then if you decide to do that, carry on with the implementation. What was the problem? The problem was that Microsoft, I would say accidentally, or I don't know whether on purpose, decided to introduce the feature as enabled by default. Of course, only on the devices that were supporting the feature. What happened, unfortunately, was that the Lenovo ThinkSmart Hub 500 and ThinkSmart Hub, so basically the second generation of the ThinkSmart Hub 500, accidentally were declared as devices supporting the ultrasound. And so what happened, as you can imagine, was that as soon as the devices received the latest MTR application version, they started emitting the ultrasound. The ultrasound is emitted only when there is no meeting in progress or when there is nobody presenting through the HDMI ingest cable any content, locally or, of course, in a meeting. However, let's say what happened was that some customers were quite annoyed by the fact that their, especially ThinkSmart Hub, starting emitting strange noises. So as a workaround, we suggested to use, of course, the Skype setting XML by disabling the ultrasound proximity and keeping just the Bluetooth proximity join. However, Lenovo and Microsoft work together, and since Thursday last week, now the ThinkSmart Hub 500 and the ThinkSmart Hub do not generate anymore any ultrasound. Also because, let's say, as I said, the speaker emitting the ultrasound should be a speaker dedicated to ultrasound in the controller, while in the case of the ThinkSmart Hub and Hub 500, it was the standard speaker of the meeting room. So it was, let's say, definitely by mistake, that decision. Now, the issue is fixed, and it's fixed without the need to install an update or a new MTR version. It was performed by Microsoft in the back office. So when the MTR restarts, the application is reading some information from the cloud, from the Microsoft cloud, and so as part of that information, it was declared by Microsoft that those two devices were not supporting ultrasound anymore. So a little bit of panic for a few days, but now it's fixed. Now we can move to another topic that is the digital signage integrated natively in the Microsoft Teams room, because that is a feature that became generally available together with the latest MTR release, the latest one. So what does it mean, digital signage with the MTR? It means that when the front of room displays, so basically the displays in the meeting rooms, become idle, you have the possibility to push content reusing those displays as digital signage displays. You can see from the picture that actually there is still at the top a sort of transparent banner where you can see, however, the name of the meeting room, the clock, of course, and what would be the next scheduled meeting. So some minimum information about the fact that you are in front of a Microsoft Teams room remain. That feature is available only on Windows-based Microsoft Teams room, and as Sean explained, it's one of the many features that you can find only on Windows-based MTRs. What happens is that this integration is based on a link between the Pro Management portal and the content management system provided by two partners. At the moment, they are Upspace and Xogo. So when the IT administrator accesses the Pro Management portal, in the configuration of the Microsoft Teams room, there is a possibility to either enter a URL, and in that case, you do not need any subscription of a CMS like Upspace or Xogo. It's fully under your control. Or you can select either one of those two providers. In that case, when you enable the content, the digital signage or the MTR, there is an exchange of information between the Pro Management portal and the CMS platform of those two providers, so that in those platforms, you can immediately identify that specific Microsoft Teams room device. And then you can push content if you want, also just for that meeting room. In the settings, there is also there are a couple of timers because you can decide how long the displays should remain idle before kicking off the digital signage. And also you can decide how long in advance the digital signage has to stop before a scheduled meeting. So you have that level of flexibility. There are also parameters regarding how you want to manage the timeout of the display itself, because let's say displays that are displays for digital signage, so displays that can run for several years 24/7 without any burn-in, are very special displays. So if you have one of those displays, then you can also basically neglect any timeout in the display and have the digital signage always running, of course, when the MTR device is not in use. And that may be helpful when the meeting room, for example, is surrounded by glass walls. Otherwise, if you have a display that is not capable of supporting 24/7 digital signage, you may decide to kick in the digital signage, but then accept the timeout of that is being configured inside the display. So you have this level of flexibility. If you are interested in more details about this, of course, we can provide also demos about this functionality. Moving on, we move to another topic that is regarding what's going to happen next year about the end of support of the Windows 10. Because we have a couple of devices in the market, Lenovo devices, that are the Lenovo ThinkSmart Hub 500 and the Lenovo ThinkSmart Edition Tiny. The Edition Tiny was actually an OEM device, so it was sold to our OEM partners, specifically Crestron for some time, but mainly Logitech and Poly, to allow them to create their bundle. And those two devices, because of old CPUs, they cannot upgrade to Windows 11. So at the moment, they are receiving updates. They are running Windows 10 22H2 and will remain on Windows 10 22H2 and keep on receiving also new MTR version. However, that will last until mid-October 2025. So on top of the end of support of Windows 10, there is also the issue that since those two devices reached the end of life, so the end of sale, the Hub 500 in June 2020 and the ThinkSmart Edition Tiny, it was in July 2021. So between the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2026, even if the customer has decided to extend the warranty up to 5 years instead of the standard default 3 years, in any case, also the warranty and the premier support of those devices is going to end. The combination of the two should, let's say, warn the customer that there is an important risk associated to that. From a Windows 10 end of life, apart from the impossibility to receive new features or meaning new MTR application versions, of course, there is no support by Microsoft, meaning that they cannot open any ticket with Microsoft, and Microsoft is not going to produce any bug fix or security fix. So vulnerabilities are critical elements. And after October 2025, those devices, even if they are not a standard PC fully open, because you know Microsoft Teams Room have been built to be let's say secure by design, but it doesn't mean that there will be no vulnerability discovered anymore. So the risk is huge. And apart from that, if there is a hardware failure, the problem is that apart from the lack of support, it will be extremely difficult for the customer to, and you and the partner, to find the spare parts for those old devices. So we need to work together on a plan that allows the customer, and there are plenty of those units still in use, and I would say that so far the customers, as far as I know, are still extremely happy about those devices, but we need to convince them that they need an upgrade strategy. And to facilitate that, we, as Lenovo, has decided to introduce a trade-in promotion. Actually, the trade-in is not only for ThinkSmart Hub 500 and ThinkSmart Edition Tiny. In general, so if the customer has an old device, they can benefit from the trade-in if, of course, they purchase a new device from Lenovo. All the details about this trade-in promotion are available at this URL as any other promotion. But just to give you an idea, we are talking about a significant discount up to 740 euros, depending on which new product the customer is going to select. And the mechanism that we are going to use, or actually that we are using because the trade-in promotion is already available, is for for you, the partner, to sell one of our products. Then we take care of the dismantling, or basically of the getting rid of the old device, and then you get the discount, the trade-in discount, back into your bank account. So it's really easy and straightforward. Of course, we have our full sales team that you can contact for all the details about this trade-in promotion. Or if you don't know who to contact, you can contact us, the technical consultants, and we will put you in contact with the right people in your region. Okay, so now we are really close to the end. I cannot end without inviting you to visit the Lenovo booth at ISE in Barcelona at the beginning of February. Of course, the focus of that trade show for Lenovo will be the ThinkSmart Core Gen 2. You will be able, of course, to see that in action because, as Sean said, the ship support, so the beginning of the distribution, is end of December. And so we will be really happy to meet you there. If, by the way, you are looking for a free ticket to access ISE 2025, there is also a code that you can use to get it to get a free ticket. Now, I think that the content is over. Let me simply double check whether there is any question still open. I don't see any other question. Okay, so as Sean said at the beginning, at the end, so later today or tomorrow, you're going to receive, however, a link to the recording and also a copy in PDF of the slides that we presented. Next Technology Club will be in March because, you know, more or less every 3 months we have that. And since, as Sean introduced at the very beginning, we have a new German technical consultant for smart collaboration in Lenovo, I can anticipate that there will be a dedicated German language version. And so for the first time, you will have the option to attend the Technology Club either in English, in French, or in German. Maybe one day there will be 20 different versions with 20 different languages, but for the time being, we start with 3. So That's it. Thanks a lot for your attendance and your attention, and see you then in March.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.